one is all wrapped up and we have our reaction to all the action. Injuries, trades, recaps, and previews, it's all being covered in this week's episode. Episode 3 of the Victorious POD starts right now.
What up, Pod Squad? How's it going tonight? I don't seem to see my my buddy Jack. I don't know where he went or what's going on with him, but I'm sure we're gonna figure it out here real quick. I just wanted to welcome you all into the Victorious POD. It is Thursday, September 17th, 2020. It is just about 1 hour before kickoff in week 2 of the NFL season. And my name is Ryan Walters. I am trying to get my buddy Jack here to come in, but I can't exactly see where he's at.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Definitely can hear you. For some reason, I cannot seem to
I don't know.
Find you on our camera list here. This is always a lot of fun when we're starting off here. Why I can't see Jack. Oh boy. So let's just see here. We're just gonna go into here, and so okay, yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. Sure. Okay, we can do that. All right, done. And hey, check it out.
Hey,
there is Jack, and
I see me.
Gonna transition over to that. Okay. Hey, it took a little bit.
We're good.
Wasn't the smoothest introduction. I would say maybe a little bit better, but we're gonna shoot for next week to try and get a flawless and seamless transition. So one more time here, welcome in everybody. My name is Ryan Walters. The guy next to me, that way, there is Jack Vickers. Jack, what's going on, man? How you feeling?
Much. Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually going to bring you up just a little bit here so we can hear you a little bit better. I'm doing all right. I just want to say thank you to all of our fans who are here watching us, following us, our league members. Thank you very much for participating in our little game that we're going to be playing here that we will get into later into the show. This is the Victorious POD, if you haven't figured it out by now. And I want to shout out to Levi Oki. That is at Levi Oki Illustrations. He is the guy who did all of our amazing artwork for our podcast and all of our social accounts that you see. Speaking of our social media accounts, you can find us here on YouTube, youtube.com, with a bunch of disgusting numbers and letters right behind it. So what we are asking from you, the fans, is to subscribe to the Victorious POD channel on YouTube so that once we get to 100 followers, we can have our own custom URL, and that would be sweet. Currently, it says in the notes that we have 12 followers. I think 4 of them are mine. I'm not gonna lie.
No big deal.
we are behind right now when it if we're talking about podcast wars. I don't know if the other pods are talking about podcast wars, but if we're talking about podcast wars, we are in second place right now with 12 viewers behind the Hidden Oaks Overdose podcast. Anyways,
what are they at now?
What's that?
What are they at now?
Last I heard, they were at like 20. So, subscribers, I need our followers. I need you guys to hit that subscribe button. You don't necessarily have to hit the notifications. We just want the subscribers so we can get that custom URL. Also, you can find us on Twitter at VictoriousPOD. There you can see all of the news and little pictures and stuff that we throw up. If you're on Twitter, just give us a follow at Victorious's And lastly, if you're not watching us here on YouTube, you can find us on Anchor at anchor.fm/the-victoriouspod, and we're also on Spotify. Jack, is there anything new, man? What's going on?
Nothing. Just still recovering from the excitement of finally having football back. That was kind of our entire weekend here at this household. So beyond that, just work.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I was so excited for football this week. Full slate of games on Sunday. It, the Vikings played. Your team played the Tampa Bay Gronkaneers. Why don't we get into all of the NFL headlines? What's going on around the NFL right now, Jack?
Yeah, so there's a few things that kind of stuck out to me. I heard, saw through the grapevine, what have you. Couple of things, not really fantasy related, but just in my opinion makes watching football more enjoyable. Fun fact: this past week, week one, holding penalties were down 78% from last year, which doesn't mean a whole lot. I know some of you guys aren't huge number fans, but that was actually the second least penalized week ever in league history since they've tracked it, which has been in the last 19 years. So I don't know if that's going to be a trend that we see continuing or what, but refs might start foregoing that penalty call and just leave it for like the super egregious ones, which would be great because it really ramped up the offensive scoring this week. There was a record 87 touchdowns this past week, which is the most that's ever happened since they've also tracked it. So that was really exciting. As far as actual like NFL breakdowns and stuff, we'll get into that a little bit later. There's a couple of ones that I'm watching for week two. As you mentioned, in about an hour, we have kickoff here tonight. Thursday night football. It is battle of the number one picks with Baker versus Joe Burrow. They're calling it the Battle of Ohio, which I don't know about you, but I don't really know if anybody wants to win that. It's kind of weird. And then lastly, though, this one I'm watching too, one of the games I have picked to watch this weekend is the Ravens from the Texans. So it's Lamar and Deshaun, which would be some great fireworks. And Deshaun has to go back to back weeks playing Lamar and Holmes, which is kind of a rough way to start your year.
Yeah, man. I don't think Deshaun could have had a more tough schedule or start to the schedule. Like you said, getting Mahomes and then going into Lamar. I think that this might actually be a tougher week for Deshaun just because of that Baltimore defense. I can't think that things are going to be any easier between with them having to play Baltimore and then with Deshaun having to play Baltimore rather than having him to play KC. I know KC is a high flying team, but so is Baltimore, but I still think that the defense over on the Ravens side of the ball is a lot more deadly than what KC is. We're going to be moving on. So let's talk a little bit about what the Vikings did this week. The Vikings actually played a game. It was a real game. It was their first real game. In fact, it was everybody's first real game this week. They scored 34, and they were bested by Green Bay, who scored 43 points. Jack, what did you see in this game?
Yeah, a big thing that we all kind of knew coming into the game. Our secondary obviously was a huge liability. Not really a great matchup when you're going to face one of the best route runners in the league with Devontae Adams. But the fact that MVS and Lazard were both able to get open deep as much as they did too was very, very scary. I don't think I expected us to get torched as badly as we did. So hopefully we can figure some stuff out. We have some great safeties back there. Our pass rush didn't do a whole lot to help out the secondary, so that's going to kind of expose coverage if we can't get more rushes in there. I think on 44 rushes dropbacks, we only even pressured him 7 times, let alone even got to him or sacked or whatever. So that's pretty rough. I think we had one of the lowest pass rush percentages in the league, like for pressure rates last week. So if we can't figure that out, we're going to be in some big trouble because we're not really a play from behind team. We're more of like a ground and pound controlled clock type of situation. A couple of other things that I guess I noticed were last year, the Vikings and Kirk in particular thrived when we were using play action. I think we did 31% of plays last year were play action routes, and Kirk had 130.1 passer rating when he did those plays. So that was kind of his bread and butter. This past week, we had one play that was a play action, and it was a 37-yard touchdown. So we didn't even do it all game, and the one time we did it, it was a bomb to Thielen. So I'm curious to see if we're going to go back to that or not. Cook looked great as far as other people. Cook and Thielen are both studs. Cook only had 50 yards, but it was kind of a play from behind game, so it wasn't like his ideal chance to get a lot of rushes. He had 2 touchdowns. I think Thielen is going to show everybody why he's still a wide receiver 1. He's going to get fed like crazy, tons of targets. He had 6 catches, but a ton of yards. He had almost half of the whole team's receiving yards and double the targets of anybody else. So those are a few things that I kind of noticed from the game this week.
What did you think about the offensive line play this week? I mean, do you think there's more to be desired when it comes to that?
I mean, I think they're always, just being a Vikings fan, do you want to see our offensive line improve more than it has been? I don't think it looked particularly terrible. There were just a couple of times where Kirk got hit by
Jack.
some really good pass rushers with Darius Smith, and that doesn't surprise me. I just don't think we really passed the ball even close to as much as I was thinking, being behind most of the game. So, yeah.
I'm gonna need you to, for now, just try and disable your video. You're breaking up a lot, so I think if we transmit just your audio, we might be able to have something a little bit better. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna disable my cam for now, and what we can do is just have us with the graphic for right now. So
we'll test it out and see if this is a little better.
Yeah, well, let's try and go along with that. Let's see here. I want to take.
Okay. Let me know if it's still happening or what the issue is.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I'm just gonna take off my cam here, and we'll transition to that. All right. Okay, so, you were saying that the offensive line. You thought that. Can you just repeat that take since it was a little chopped up?
Yeah, for sure. We'll see if mine's as delayed now. I think as a Vikings fan, you always want to see the offensive line be better because it's been pretty rough in recent years, but I don't think we passed the ball enough for me to have really seen a whole lot. I mean, the Packers have a couple of good pass rushers as it is that got to us a couple of times, but I don't think I saw a whole lot of us actually throwing the ball enough where I'm curious to see what it's going to look like next week when we're not just playing from behind the entire time. So hoping that we're at least somewhat improved from last year.
Do you think, Kirk Cousins, he ran around a little bit. Do you think that we're going to see Kirk Cousins scrambling a little bit more? I mean, what are your thoughts on Kirk Cousins kind of scrambling around?
Yeah, for sure. I hope not. I think that made me a little bit nervous every time I saw one of those plays where he did start to. I think he's got legs enough to at least be able to when you need him to, but he's not going to be the guy that's running for 10, 15 yards on a play like that. So I think I'd prefer to see him stay in the pocket or at least roll out and pass, but I don't want to see him dancing too much because if that's happening, that just means our line isn't doing their job. So I prefer to see him not mobile unless he really has to be.
Okay. Right on. So we got a game coming up this weekend. It is the Vikings at the Colts, 12 p.m. on Sunday. Jack, what can we look forward to, or what are we hoping to see in this matchup against the Colts?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest storyline that I'm looking at and that I'm sure most people who watch this game are going to see, at least on the Colts side, is the Jonathan Taylor breakout going to happen? That's kind of what we've all been talking about in the offseason, how he was one of the most hyped prospects coming in as a running back. Marlon Mack, unfortunately, goes out for the season first week, even though he was looking great, and it looked like they were actually giving him the chance to be the one. So now it's Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, who is more of a pass-catching back, and the head coach for the Colts already came out and said, Taylor is our starter rest of the season, we're going to just lock that in and not even mess with it. So what does Jonathan Taylor look like when he gets the full workload is going to be interesting. The Colts had a really high pressure rate last week on defense, so we're going to need to be getting the ball out quickly with Kirk. I know on that one play when he took a safety last week, I was like, they're coming with a rush, so you got to get rid of the ball. So he's going to really have to have an emphasis on that this week. We're probably going to have to lean on Cook more as well. I don't think there's a ton of playmakers on the Colts defense, so we should have a little bit easier time moving the ball. And then as far as our defense, how do we bounce back? Does our secondary recover? Do we get blown up? I don't think we're going to be giving up 40 plus points to the Colts, because I definitely think like Rodgers is better than Rivers, and then the combos of receivers like Devontae Adams, Lazard are better than Ty and Paris Campbell and the guys that they have there. So while the Colts have some weapons and are dangerous, I can't imagine that it's got to be a little bit easier for us to stop them this time. So I'm expecting us to win. I'll be very disappointed and concerned.
They're not on the same level as Adams and Lazard, but I still feel like Ty and Paris Campbell can really make it they're going to give us a headache. They're going to give our cornerbacks a headache. Our cornerbacks are still green. They're still trying to figure it out. But I'm still nervous that our secondary isn't going to be able to hold up against these guys. Jack, what do you think for a final score between the Vikings and the Colts?
I'm actually going to revise it what I initially had. I definitely think it's going to be a lower scoring game because I'm expecting more of a ground and pound running game on both sides. So I'm thinking the clock will be pretty quick. If I had to guess, I still think we're going to pull it out probably by one score. Let's say like 27-20.
27-20?
Yep.
Okay, right on. All right, we're going to be moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Last week, Tom Brady made his debut along with Rob Gronkowski. Tampa Bay 23, New Orleans 34. Jack, what were some of the storylines in this that you found interesting?
It left something to be desired for Brady fans such as myself. It was not as exciting or fireworks as we would have hoped.
It almost seemed kind of ugly.
There was a lot of talk. Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of like just out of sync going on both ends. I'm not sure who it was coming through more, but there were a few broken off routes where Brady was trying to hit his guys, and either they cut it off early or he thought they were going to do something different. That led to the one pick on the Mike Evans route where he dropped short. So hoping that just some more practice with the team, they're going to get a little bit more comfortable with each other. Brady's been there before with receivers having issues and with him getting used to the system. So I expect him to bounce back more, but Brady, you could tell, wasn't used to that. There were a lot of penalties on the team. He's used to a very disciplined offense. A lot of just issues that I don't think he's typically been in that situation before. Other than Brady, it was exciting to see Ronald Jones get the majority of the carries. He had 17 for 66, and he actually looked really good on some of the bigger carries, while Fournette had only 5 for 5 yards total. So will Ronald Jones be the number one the entire year? I don't know. Fournette might still be getting used to the system, but it was good for seeing that clear-cut number one option.
Yeah, I'm sure a few people are. I'm sure a few people are really breathing a sigh of relief that Rojo was getting majority of the work. I still would be a little bit nervous about it just because Fournette just getting more familiarity with the system. I think that it's possible that you could see an uptick in usage from Fournette just because he has that much more familiarity with the Bucs playbook, and so I wouldn't be surprised at all if I saw more usage out of Fournette this week than what you saw last week.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of still up in the air at this point.
Right, yeah. So the Buccaneers are at home. They have their home opener this weekend, 12 p.m. on Sunday. They are playing Two Glove Teddy, or I think I said that right. I don't know. Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater gonna go up against Tom Brady. How do you think that's gonna swing out?
I think this will be a lot better bounce back game for him. I think when you're no disrespect to Teddy, but he's in a new system. He was only the starter for a limited time last year. When you're going from Drew Brees to anybody, it's a little bit less to worry about. Obviously, CMC is about the most scary weapon of anybody in the NFL, so that I'm concerned for. And Robbie Anderson had a great game too, but the Panthers defense is extremely bad, and I think for as rough as the Buccaneers looked last week, you got to remember the Saints defense is still very, very good with some playmakers in the secondary. So I think the Buccaneers are going to be able to move the ball pretty much at will through the air, through the ground, whatever this week. And while the Panthers offense is good, I just don't see them keeping up necessarily. So I think Brady and the teammates are going to only get more and more in sync as the year goes. And I'm expecting probably a double digit win, like something in the 31 to 34 range, like 34 to 20 would be my guess.
I just have concern with, your Chris Godwin. He might be out due to concussion protocol. How healthy is Mike Evans? I mean, obviously, if you have Mike Evans, you're going to be starting him in your lineup. But will a injured or a hampered Mike Evans and possibly no Chris Godwin, is that going to be? Are you scared that Tom Brady is not going to be able to move the ball when his two top flight wideouts are either hurt and or out?
I mean, not really. I feel like Brady's been doing it for years with mediocre wide receiver talent. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are probably two of the best receivers he's had, at least two of the top three. So, yeah, obviously you'd love to have them both out there because it just gives him more weapons. But I think like Gronk is always still a threat, even though he didn't do much last week. OJ Howard, Brady gave him one of the best games he's had even in the past year or so. So he's a weapon. Scotty Miller looked great last week. Like Brady had, I think 6 or 7 targets at least to him. So I think he'll find a way to get it done either way. But yeah, if, for example, both Evans and Godwin ended up being out or at least hampered, I'd probably reduce the offense a little bit, but I think I'm still not super worried.
Okay, right on. All right, that's going to wrap it up for the regular NFL. We're going to get into some Victoria's Secret topics now. Some of the news and notes. Just a couple of days ago, it might have actually been yesterday. It was yesterday. Tyler, our commissioner, he had his birthday. Happy birthday, Tyler.
Yay.
I hope you had a great day, and I wouldn't be surprised if you went to Buffalo Wild Wings because I know that is one of your favorite places to eat and or drink. All right. Side bets. We've got side bets coming up. Better late than never. There are going to be 10 side bets total, which payout is $5 each. And week 3, so not this week, but next week, week 3 will be the close shave side bet, which is the smallest margin of victory. Continuing on, we've had not one, but 2 trades here within the last week of the Victoria's Secret Fantasy Football League. Yeah, it's crazy. So I want to get into a new segment that we've come up with called the Jack of All Trades segment. And Jack, we're just going to kick it on over to you. And what do you have to say?
Perfect. Yeah. So it was definitely a shock, just before we get into each trade specifically, the fact that there were any trades made at all in this league. And then they were for some pretty notable names. I don't know about most of you guys as listeners, but for me at least, it seems like this league is one of the hardest to trade in that I've ever been a part of. Obviously, all of us are very, aware and updated as far as fantasy stuff. I feel like it's definitely an extremely competitive league. And when you're in a redraft league versus like a dynasty or whatever, where they have draft picks and stuff, it's very, very tough to make a trade work when everybody knows what's going on, because there's always going to be somewhat of a clear winner and a loser. You're giving up a player for a player. One player is usually ranked better. So the fact that a big trade happened and then followed it up within like minutes, a second trade, is pretty rare for our league, because there have been entire seasons where a trade hasn't happened before. So
that is correct.
Getting into the first one, I'll kind of give my thoughts.
Can we
and if you want to let me know what you think, Walters.
Can we just back up for just 1 second? You said that there was a trade, and then right after there was another trade. Did 2 trades happen the same day, or was it?
Yeah.
Oh my Lanta. Yeah, this literally is like the biggest breaking news when it comes to trades, because like you stated, there have been seasons where there have been 0 trades. And I know for me, like, the hardest thing for me is like you said, is being able to live with the fact that you're giving up something to get something back. So you're weakening yourself at one spot where you need to be able to strengthen another spot, and that inner fight of being able to be like, can I really deal with letting this guy go so I can get something back in which I desperately, desperately need? And I know that I have struggled with that because we draft our teams, we love our teams, and we sometimes, most of the time, overvalue our team and the guys that we have on our team. So that makes trading extremely tough in our league. So to be able to see two trades go down within 24 hours of each other is literally earth-shattering news in the Victoria's Secret front.
Yeah, well said. It's a very good way to say it. And I think honestly, they might have been within 24 minutes, let alone 24 hours.
Even
Getting
crazier.
into the first one, I'll kind of give a little bit of backstory as we go. But just getting into the first one, to lay it out there initially, it was a trade between Jay and Alex. Jay gave up Michael Thomas and Kyler Murray, basically swapping quarterbacks with Al for Lamar Jackson coming back and Malcolm Brown. So a little bit of context here as far as my opinion. I think it made a lot of sense for both teams. I think Jay has gone into a slight tilt or full panic mode, depending on how you look at it, because pretty much every player he's touched and drafted this season has just either died or been cut or been injured or horrible things. So he hasn't had a lot of great luck so far. I think he just felt like he needed to shake something up with the news that Michael Thomas has I believe, high ankle sprain and is going to be out for several weeks. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't really know, but you never want to give up a number one pick. But if you're going to start the season in a hole of like 1-4 or 0-5, it's really not going to matter. So I think he just feels like he needs to make some moves now and not get into a bigger hole. I think that's probably where the quarterback flop came from, because Kyler Murray and Lamar I still both see as being probably top 5 quarterbacks this year and pretty similar, but Lamar obviously has a little bit of an edge. So Jay slightly improves at quarterback and gets a startable piece right now, while Alex maybe pushes at quarterback and kind of loads up for partway through the season, getting a number 1 pick back.
Yeah, man, that is just it is a great trade. Like, looking at it from top to bottom, you're swapping quarterbacks. They're on the same tier. It's just gonna matter of, who's gonna finish number 1 or number 3. I honestly think that Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray have the ability to finish in the top 3 when it comes to fantasy quarterbacks. And then for Alex to be able to go out and get an injured Michael Thomas right now, he's going to have to sit on and wait for him. But if Michael Thomas can come back and just perform at the level that Michael Thomas does, I'm excited for Al's team. Like, I think Al could really do something. And Malcolm Brown, if he keeps doing on what he's doing, Jay is going to be super happy with him, because I'm sure, if I remember right, I believe when I did my draft grade for Jay, I thought he was definitely weak at the running back position. So a starting running back is going to help Jay so much. And it just also goes to show you how much our league values running backs. You take Malcolm Brown, who is in I guess you can call it a timeshare, but as of right now, is the starter for the Rams. And he was traded for the consensus number 1 wide receiver going into this year. I mean, that is insane value for Malcolm Brown. Like, I don't want to say that Al swindled Jay, but that just goes to show you how much we value running backs in our league. And so congrats to both players. Great trade. Let's hear about the next trade, Jack. What happened?
Well, just really quick, that's really key info coming from someone who's made a first round wide receiver trade in the past as well. So you know what you're talking about there.
Yeah, I've made mistakes. I've made mistakes doing that. Again, valuing the running back position.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Some people may thought it was a ludicrous trade, but that's neither here nor there.
I liked it.
I'm sure you liked it because it brought you all the way to the ship. All right, what's going on with the second trade?
Anyways, the second one, what was funny was Jay and I had been talking about this. It was between myself and Jay, spoiler alert. Jay and I had been talking about this one a little bit earlier in the day, and we kind of I got a verbal agreement from him that he was down to make this trade, but he wanted to wait. It was on Wednesday, and he wanted to wait until Thursday when waivers processed. And then literally 10 minutes after I got done texting him, I get the alert saying, "Hey, Jay and Alex made a trade," and I'm like texting Jay back, "Hey, well that's cool," and he goes, "Yeah, just kidding. I didn't see that trade coming, so I'll just make the trade with you right now." I'm like, "Oh, cool." So like literally within a handful of minutes, it was just boom, boom, here we go. So for those of you that obviously aren't in our league, the trade ended up being I traded Emmanuel Sanders for Jay's Le'Veon Bell straight up, which for a little bit more context, if you haven't been in the fantasy news lately, obviously with Michael Thomas going out, Emmanuel Sanders is seen as kind of the number one option as far as receivers go. He led the league in red zone targets, I believe, last week with 4. So he's got some options. He's been a wide receiver one before. He should be great. I just ran into the situation where I'm glad that I picked this guy and he should have a great opportunity, but I don't know if there's any week that I'm going to clearly start him over Allen Robinson, Odell Beckham, and DJ Chark. I mean, you could make an argument for one over the other, but I felt like I had 3 solid guys. So I was a little bit more concerned with my running back depth, really, after a couple of my guys. It's kind of a drop off at this point. So I tossed it out to Jay. If any of his running backs were on the table, he said Bell would be the one that he'd be willing to give up. And I figured, cool, I don't really need Bell right now anyway. It's more for bye weeks. And, you know, he had a rough week 1. He got hurt, but he's only going to be out for 3 weeks. And he is the guy when he comes back. So on volume alone, I'm hoping he'll be a good enough flex play.
Right on. Yeah. Not concerned at all with how Adam Gase uses him, or just the fact that even as well, did Lev Bell get hurt last week? I mean, did he get injured?
Yeah, during the game he had 6 carries and then he got hurt. So
okay, all right. So we really didn't get to see what Le'Veon Bell could do. There is hope that Le'Veon Bell can bounce back and have a better year. I myself am concerned about Le'Veon Bell, but again, it could turn around and be great. I think it's still a very fair trade. Emmanuel Sanders is at his highest value right now with Michael Thomas being out, and Emmanuel Sanders, what is looking like to be the favorite target down there for Drew Brees. All right, that's going to conclude all of our trade talk that we had here in the Victoria's Secret Fantasy Football League. In the next segment, we don't have a drop for it yet, but we will be getting into it. Our team name update has officially had a name change. And Jack, I want you to introduce our new segment. Well, the rebranded team name update. What is our new segment called, Jack?
Say my name. The best I got.
You.
That's all you gotta get.
Perfect. I had no idea Jack was gonna sing on the air, so that is.
Oh, Jack didn't know.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that is just a little nugget right there. That's just gold right there. I'm wondering if Alex is gonna cut that up too and use that in his pod.
Oh God.
Oh my God. All right, so team name update. I'm sorry. Say my name. All right, so I just did it too. All right, Jack, beautiful. What do we got for team name updates going this week?
Yeah. So I know last week when we talked about it, we were at 7 out of 12. We bumped it up to 9. So we're getting there, but at the same time, it's week 2. So like you guys have now started to set your lineups twice. Like those of you that have your names would have no names, which I won't mention. How have you not noticed it yet? Shout out to the 2 that did change theirs. I believe it was Jay and Tyler. Jay switched his up to Benny and the Jets, which I love that. He has Benny Snell in his starting lineup now. The only sad part for me is that he has 1 Jet because he traded away Le'Veon Bell. So it's really Benny and the Jet. So either you got to pick up the Jets defense, and I hear that they're great, or find another Jet, and then your team name will be right. And then Tyler switched his to Every Day I'm Rustling, which I'm assuming that's Rick Ross, not the other song that says that. But you know, gotta love Rick Ross, and Russell Wilson was clearly your MVP of week 1, so I'm also a fan of that name. Yep. And then Al, you know, he already had a team name, but then he thought, you know what, why not switch it another time and then switch it a third time? So he had it as Hip Hip Murray for Kyler Murray with his new quarterback. And fantastic. Then as I was logging on, I looked and saw that he switched it to, oh my God, you killed Kenny for even Kenny better. Galladay.
Yes, I love it.
So
right on. All right. Hold on here 1 second. Doop 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 doop.
And that concludes team name update.
We're gonna bring that back just a little bit. All right. Well, that's a staple. We have to bring that. We have to keep that going.
Of course.
All right. And we are going to be moving on to, instead of like a general fantasy news, and usually when we talk about fantasy players news, we're usually talking about updates, but a general fantasy segment name is just boring. So on the fly, I just decided to come up with a new segment name called Injury Prone, and it is going to essentially, we're just going to cover the biggest names in fantasy football. If they're on one of our teams here in the Victoria's Secret Fantasy Football League. Like I said, if it's a startable player, we're going to throw them in the notes, and you will hear probably for the 30 millionth time about who is injured this week so far. In injury prone, Jack's guy, Blake Jarwin, out for the season. In the notes here, Jack, I saw that you had a frowny face. I'm sure you're just devastated about Blake Jarwin.
Yeah, words cannot describe. I didn't even get to see him play on a non-contact injury. He goes down.
And like we stated before, Le'Veon Bell and Michael Thomas right now are currently out. They are most likely going to be out for 3 weeks. And then the bust of all busts, James Conner. He is dealing with an ankle injury. Is he going to play this week? Do we know if he's going to play?
Questionable. Mike Tomlin said, quote unquote, that he will leave the light on for James Conner to play in week 2, which nobody knows what that means, but they'll probably announce it a little bit closer to Friday, Saturday.
Okay, right on. So keep your ears open for James Conner to be playing. All right, that is gonna wrap up our injury prone segment. And we are going to move right on into our noteworthy ad drops. And Jack is thinking we could name the segment Drop It Like It's Hot. I think we need to workshop it a little bit, but we're going to go with it for now. So it's time for Drop It Like It's Hot. Cassie, she spent a lot of money this week, didn't she?
She did. Just a quarter of her budget dropped right off the bat.
Who did she pick up for $25 hairs?
She picked up Peyton Barber, who I believe he only had like 20-something yards, but he did have 2 goal line carries that he made into touchdowns. He's the Washington Washington football team's running back. Save. When I say he's their running back, I don't mean he's their only running back. He's one of like 4. So I think a lot of people expect Gibson to end up being the guy, but for now, Peyton Barber is, and I think she's probably hoping he'll cover for James Conner. So,
yep. Yeah. That's a decent pickup. You know, if you can find a vulture back whose main job is to get them goal line carries, and if he makes it in once or twice and then tacks on 20 yards a game, you know, you're hoping for 8 points in that flex spot. So not a bad pickup for Cassie there. Foster, he also spent a ton of dough this week. How much money did Foster spend this week?
$25 hairs as well. Foster is I think, known in our league, at least to me, as the guy that always goes bankrupt first. So he just really wanted to get right out of the gate and just spend it all while he had it. So he went and dropped $25 on Dallas Goedert, who I think a lot of people have been kind of seeing as a breakout this year because they're showing the Eagles that they might not really need Zach Ertz. They both scored this week, but Goddard had a lot more yards. I like the pick. I think it was a lot of money for him, and also that he has Hayden Hurst. So I think he's still going to be great this year, even though he had a disappointing week 1. So curious who Foster's going to start week to week there, but like the pick, just a lot of money.
Did you put any money on Goddard?
No, because I feel like if I would have picked up Goddard, when am I ever going to start one over the other? I have Zach Ertz, so it's just kind of like.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugly situation.
I put $9 on him thinking that would be a decent price, but I did not get him. All right, moving on. Jay, he spent $18 this week, and he picked up Sammy Watkins. Okay, yep, you do not like that. Why do you not like it? Is it just because of the inconsistency of Sammy Watkins, or, I mean...
I have a personal vendetta against him after last year because I drafted the dude, and he went off and was the wide receiver 1, and I didn't have him in my lineup because I drafted him like 7th, 8th round. And I go, oh, cool, he is good. I made a right pick. I kept him in my lineup for like 3 weeks, and every other week he had like 2 points or less. So I'm God, you're killing me.
It was pretty terrible. And to see him, like we said last week, to see him go off again in week 1, but I don't blame Jay. I mean, I put $9 on Sammy Watkins as well. So for you to be able to go out he spent less than 20% of his budget, and he's got a guy that potentially, could repeat. Now, do I think he's going to repeat? Probably not, but in our league, if any player has any value whatsoever, he is going to be bought, and he's probably going to be
Yeah.
overpaid, and he's just going to ride the bench for the rest of the year until it has been proven that he is not worthy of the bench spot. And I mean, that's exactly what Jay Winton did with Sammy Watkins. Alex added Corey Davis for $16. Jack is thinking yikes on this one. I don't like it either. I think again it's the same thing of he went out and did something. We're gonna add a player to our bench that holds any sort of value whatsoever. But you do like that he spent $0 on Chenault. So that was a good pickup for him as well. Jordan picked up that bitch Miles Gaskin, pardon my French, for $6, and he went and bought Marquez Valdez-Scantling for $9. Jack, you added Russell Gage for $2. I think that's a really great pickup considering that he went out and put up over 100 yards in the first week. But and you respect the fact that he is sitting behind Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley as well. It'll be interesting to see what they do out there.
He is the slot guy, though, so that's the hope that he'll just get playtime no matter what.
Right, yeah. And then wrapping it up, we have Foster added Mason Crosby and dropped Dan Bailey for $1. And you pretty much just, want to throw him out into the ocean because you think he's a traitor.
Well, you dropped a Vikings kicker and you pick up a Packers kicker. Like, what else is that supposed to say?
Well, can you blame him? I mean, the 2 times that we went and scored touchdowns, we did a 2-point conversion. Did he kick a field goal in last week's game?
Yeah, I believe he had one. I thought. I know. Yeah. Which, I mean, it just we had to go for the 2. So I think most weeks he would get more, but I totally get it. Crosby's a good kicker. I'm just giving Foster some grief.
Some guff. Yep. I hear you. All right. That's going to wrap up the Drop It Like It's Hot segment. And we are now going to be moving on to the Tater Tot Hot Take. Jack, you have the floor. What's going on?
All right. So I'll do a quick little recap of last week. We'll just try to toss out a few new ones each week and go from there. But last week, 3 predictions. I got 2 of them actually right, so not too shabby. And the third one I also almost got right. First one, I said Trubisky was going to look good this week by his standards and finish as a top 15 QB. He was the number 7 QB, so easily got that one correct. Second one, I had Cam Newton was going to look like his old self with a top 12 performance against a mediocre defense. I guess 1 rushing touchdown and 2 passing. Silly me, he had 2 rushing touchdowns. I didn't know, but he was the number 6 QB. So your 6 and 7 were Cam Newton and Trubisky. So that made it super easy for me.
Nice.
And then my third one, I guess that the Steelers would have a top 12 QB, running back, and wide receiver this week. I was incorrect, but Big Ben was number 9, so I got that correct. Juju was number 6, also correct. Benny Snell was number 1. Obviously, we didn't see Benny Snell being the number 1 over James Conner, so Conner getting hurt didn't help. But Snell had 113 yards, which is one of the highest rushing yards on its own for any running back that week, and he had no touchdowns. He was actually 4 points out of the top 12, so I was that close to getting probably the boldest one correct. But 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And then kind of an impromptu accidental one. When I was talking matchups last week, I said, Josh Jacobs has a great chance to be the number 1 running back this week. Go back and check the tape. I did myself because I wasn't sure if I said it out loud. And he was the number 1. So probably one that's a little bit tougher to call who's going to be the 1 on any given week, but got that one right on the money.
Congratulations. What do we got going on this week?
This week, kind of tried to spread it out a little bit with a QB, a running back, and a wide receiver. This past week, Brady was not a QB1. He was number 13, so he just missed, which I don't think, at least I didn't expect to happen. I figured he'd be a 1 with the weapons in there. But I think this week he's going to bounce back, not just as a QB1, but as a top 5 QB against a pretty rough Carolina defense. My second one is, I think I just went this way just because I wanted to be different, but everybody's calling for the Jonathan Taylor breakout with Marlon Mack out for the year. And while I think he's going to be a great running back the rest of the year, I think it's probably going to take him a week because he was not seen as the number 1 guy last week with Marlon Mack doing well. So I am guessing that Jonathan Taylor will be held to under 70 yards, which 50, 60 yards, you get a touchdown, it's still a decent game, but I think we wouldn't call a breakout rusher if they're only getting like 50 yards in a week. So I think he'll wait 1 week for that. And then my third guess, I called the number one running back last week, so I'm going to call the number one wide receiver this week. I'm guessing that Julio is going to be up there pushing for the number one wide receiver spot this week against Dallas. He'll probably get at least one touchdown. I know he struggles with touchdowns, but I think that Atlanta-Dallas game is going to be a shootout. So Julio's my guy.
Do you have a bold prediction for yardage for Julio?
Oh, boy. I will say, I don't know what he got. He got 150, something like that last
It's
week.
a bold take.
Pretty high level. So I will say he gets like 145.
Okay, 145 and a tutter for Julio. That is very bold, and I like it. I think it's close. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. 145 is a tough order to get, but I think
it's bold. But if I said he was going to get 80 yards, that's not,
No,
I got to go high here.
Yeah, that's got to be high. All right, so one more thing before we move on. I don't think Brady's going to be a top 5 quarterback this week. I think the whole offense is still trying to figure it out with the virtual offseason and with Mike Evans still probably being hobbled. And I'm going to have to guess if Chris Godwin doesn't practice tomorrow, he is out. So he has to be able to pass his concussion protocol. So it is a tall order for Chris Godwin. I will say, though, if those two are out, my bold prediction will be that Gronk will get a touchdown and 50 yards receiving. Is that bold enough for a tight end for a guy who didn't play football last year?
I like that.
Okay.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, especially with his week 1 showing, I think that's a solid take.
All right. So I'm going to go 50 yards and a touchdown for the Gronkinator. All right. So we're done with that. We're going to move on to purchase or pass. Last week, how did we do? Thielen had 7+ catches. Purchase or pass, both of us passed it, and he had 6 catches. Brady with more fantasy points than Breeze. Jack said no. Or wait, no. Yep, I'm sorry.
No,
Jack
I said Brady. Yeah.
Jack said yes, and he did. Brady had 20.5 points versus Breeze 14.4. Jack proposed the idea of Lamar with 55+ rushing yards. Jack said no, and Lamar only had 45 rushing yards. DeAndre Hopkins was the next one up with 6+ catches in his new home. I said yes. I don't know if Jack said yes, but
I said no.
he definitely did. He had 14 catches last week. Trubisky with 2 turnovers versus the Lions. I'm guessing we both said no because he had 0 turnovers, and the note said that we were both correct. And then I don't really understand the last one. I mean,
yeah, I'll explain. The last one I tossed out was, okay, we've got the 3 rookie running backs, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, and J.K. Dobbins. And I was like, I think I was asking you, how many of them do you think are going to outscore their veteran competition?
I remember.
I believe you said 2, but I think you said 2 wouldn't and 1 would, but I think you got the 1 wrong. And then I said all 3 wouldn't, so I got 1 wrong as well. AP outscored Swift. Naheem Hines outscored Jonathan Taylor, but J.K. Dobbins did beat Mark Ingram.
I think the one that I picked might have been JT over Hines, but it doesn't matter.
I think that's right.
All right, so we're going to be moving on to this week's Purchase or Pass. And Jack, what do you got for Purchase or Pass?
All right. So, first one, does J.K. Dobbins outscore Ingram again? Ingram had a super disappointing week 1, and J.K. Dobbins got both of the red zone carries for 2 touchdowns, but they both had less than 30 yards. So, who are you taking there?
Can you give me just a minute? I want to look it up quick.
Sure. So I'll say that I am going to say no. I'm going to expect that Ingram bounces back and carries, at least gets more rushing work. Who gets the red zone carries is up in the air.
Okay, who is Dobbins playing this week? I know he's at Baltimore. I know we already talked about it.
They both are, so they're playing the Texans.
Okay, they're playing the Texans. That's right. Yes, I'm going to say that Dobbins does outscore Mark Ingram this week.
Perfect. Head to head. Another game that guys are going against each other, the Raiders and the Saints are playing. So the RB1 from last week, Josh Jacobs versus the higher first-round pick in Alvin Kamara. I'm saying purchase or pass that Josh Jacobs outscores Kamara again in their head-to-head game this week, especially with Michael Thomas out, so they're probably going to rely on Kamara. But
I'm going to say pass because I really like the defense of the New Orleans Saints. And like you said, with MT being out this week, I think that's going to open the door for a lot of checkdowns to Alvin Kamara. So I am going to go pass on Jacob outscoring Kamara.
I am going to go purchase. I mean, Jacobs is my guy, and I was full in on him. I reached for him a couple spots early this year in the first round. So I'm going to do it just because I think the Raiders are going to run through him and him alone, and we will see. Number 3, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a great breakout into the league last week with over 100, I think 113 yards rushing total, no catches or anything. But do you think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire has 100-plus total yards again this week?
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he is at the Chargers this weekend. I wish they would tell me what.
Chargers.
I wish they would tell me what the ranking is on them. If I look at it, I can figure. Or
Oh.
I'm looking at it, but I'm looking at the wrong.
Looking at
thing.
rankings, right?
Yeah, I wanted.
I said no. I'm going to say he's still going to have a great game, but I think the Chargers front seven is better than the Texans front seven that we played last week. And I think they'll get him more involved in the passing game, but I think Mahomes is going to spread it around to a lot of people. Like Tyreek had a good game with a touchdown, but not great. So I think he gets more of the yardage, and same with Kelsey. So I will say pass.
I can't find what I'm looking for right now, and the app doesn't tell me what I want to know. So I'm going to say purchase. Why not?
So what you got, man? Okay.
Go on purchase.
Just splitting with me on every pick. All right. Purchase or pass that Cam Newton is again a top 10 QB this week versus Seattle.
Pass.
I am purchasing to be different than you again. I'm doubling down on Cam back-to-back weeks.
So,
and then last one, we'll see if we line up here. Dallas Goedert outscores Zach Ertz again in week 2. They're playing the Rams.
I will purchase that because I still feel that the Eagles wide receiver core is decimated, and Dallas Goedert, I feel like his build and his skill set is closer to a wide receiver set or what a wide receiver would. So I have a feeling that they're going to be having both those guys in, and he's going to get those targets. I'm definitely going to purchase that. I think that Goddard will outscore Zach Ertz again this week.
I'm going to pass just so we can be 5 different ones and see what happens next week. But this is more with my heart than with my head because I have Ertz and I'm worried. So.
All right, cool. That will sum up, or that will finish purchase or pass. And I can't wait to figure out how well we predicted. All right, coming up now, we've got our water bet boards. Are you keeping track of these, Jack?
Yeah, I put the 2 in from last week, and then I tossed a new one in there just to see what happens. But quick touching on our 2 from last week, there is a secret one that you and I talked about, which I don't want to mention the segment or what it's about because then that'll ruin it. But currently you're still correct, but it's a season-long thing, so we'll see if it comes true or does not come true. That's all I can say, classified. And the other one that I mentioned was that I was going against you. I don't know if you ever agreed to this, but that's what I was saying. I would make a water bet on James Conner because I believed while he played, he would be an RB1, just meaning points per game because I'm expecting him to get hurt. But I figured most games that he played, he would average out as an RB1. It did not start well, but then again, he got hurt in the game. So it was kind of a 0 for 2 there. So we'll see. He's going to come back. He has some other chances, but.
So here's the deal.
We'll see.
Last week when we were talking about this, I was throwing shade in James Conner's way. I was throwing shade at James Conner. I was throwing shade. I think I used that term correctly. But my shade that I had, I was kind of waffling on it a little bit when you said, hey, you want to make a water bet? And I was like, oh, yikes.
Yeah.
Man. So I
was very confident.
I was not super confident, and I was so not super confident in it that I decided to back away from that water bet.
Oh,
excuse
good.
Me, and excuse me one sec. And for fairness in the bit, seeing that how last week turned out, we're just gonna take that water bet off the board because
Works
Seeing
for
what
me.
James Conner did last week and how his ankle just seems to be made out of 12-year-old man boy parts. With a 12-year-old ankle, you never seems to have a healthy ankle. That's what I was trying to say.
Got
Anyways,
it.
I don't think good things are gonna happen for I've got now I just lost his stupid name.
James Conner.
Yeah, James Conner. I really think that the backup out there in Pittsburgh, the
Benny Snell.
Benny Snell, yes. Benny Snell, I think he is going to be the one you want to watch for coming up here in probably the next few weeks. I would say that Benny Snell might have the starting job by week 4.
Do you confident that when Connor is healthy, Benny still outscores him rest of the year?
No, because I honestly think that coaching staff is probably sick of him by now. You know, and he gets out
So
there.
you think
all he
Benny
does is
Snell
hurt
will
himself
outscore?
six carries into the game or whatever it was.
So you think Benny Snell will outscore James Conner once James Conner's back?
I will put a water bet on the board for this season that Benny Snell will outscore James Conner season long. So, but we can do it with the number of games. So, like if James Conner only
like
plays
points
the
per
half of
game?
the season because he's injured the other half of the season, I will say in those 8 games that Benny Snell plays, he will have more fantasy points than what James Conner would.
Okay. So straight up, when they're both healthy, whoever outscores more.
Correct.
Okay. Deal. I'm in. Put it on the board.
Okay. Make sure you keep track of that stuff because.
Oh, I will.
Okay.
I will. One other quick one to you, just because I feel like everybody's on the hype train, and I don't dislike the guy, but I'm just, I guess, not big on it. Do you think Jonathan Taylor will be a top 10 running back rest of the season now?
It's hard to say. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, prospects are good. I mean, the guy, from all accounts, he looked great. He's behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. He also has Phillip Rivers, who loves to throw down to the running back position. So for somebody like Jonathan Taylor, it's real. I mean, he's in a really good spot to be able to be a top 15 running back on the season. But I want to let that play out a little bit more before I make my water bet on that.
Fair enough. All right.
That's gonna wrap up our I keep wanting to say waterboard. It's our water bet segment. And next up, coming up, we've got swimming upstream. Jack, what do you got for swimming upstream with us?
Yeah, just real quick, wrapping up week 1. I picked Phillip Rivers, so I'll just kind of do an updated rolling average to let you know kind of how I'm doing and how incorrect I am. Rivers had 15 points. Wasn't great, but it was okay. There were a couple of better options on the board, but like one of them was Trubisky, and I don't think anybody would have picked that coming. So don't feel horrible. You could have survived if you had to start with Rivers with 15 points. Week 2, I've been kind of going back and forth between 2 clear guys that are currently on the waivers. My guy, Matt Stafford, and then Ryan Tannehill, who looked great, picked up where he left off last season. Stafford plays Green Bay, and I think it's going to be a high-scoring one because the Lions can't stop anybody. And Tannehill plays Jacksonville, who I think looks great week 1, but I think the Titans also looked very, very good, and Tannehill had like career high, at least with the Titans passing attempts. So it probably comes down to whether Galladay plays for me. I think he's questionable and expected to play, but he was questionable last week. So if Galladay plays, I'm locking in Stafford. But if not, I probably would reserve the right to switch to Tannehill.
Okay, I need you to do the fans a really big favor right now, Jack.
Yeah.
I need you to just pick one. Are you going to pick Tannehill or are you going to pick Stafford?
Stafford.
He's
Lock it
going
in.
Stafford, folks. All right. All right, cool. That is swimming upstream, and we are now going to get into our awesome matchup recaps here. We are going to be doing that, and we're going to transition over. Can I move? No, I can't. Yes, I mean I can, but do. We're just gonna do.
How do you want to do this one? Do you want to each take one at a time, or do you want to?
Yeah, we will. I'm just setting up something real quick here in OBS, even though I have it already like set up. but I just wanted to just adjust just a little bit more. Okay, so that's set, and we're going to be done. And we can just put that up on the screen. Okay, and that's all done. All right, so we have all of our matchup recaps. Last week, we had Foster versus Tyler. Jack, why don't you start us off and tell us about what happened between Foster and Tyler?
For sure. For those of you not watching us live on YouTube or later on YouTube, Tyler took this one 111.9 to Foster's 105.5. So it was close. They both had over 100 points. It was respectable. But Tyler pulled away in large part due to his QB, Russell Wilson. They definitely let Russ cook in this one, and he dominated, putting up a whole lot of points. Tyler's top two running backs put up a combined almost 40 points, and Foster's top two receivers had a combined 41 points. So kind of like I talked about in the last week's matchup breakdown, but they both have a clear edge in one spot, and it worked. Both of them had pretty disappointing tight ends. Hayden Worst, not Hurst, did not do like Foster hoped, which is why he picked up Goddard. And Tyler had Kittle, who was an early, I think, second round pick, and he also kind of let down. So luckily, neither of them lost the edge there. For Tyler, he, I think, ended up taking him out of the lineup, but DeAndre whiffed on that touchdown catch. Also did not help him. And beyond that, it was pretty even across the board with the lower end. So overall, both teams look really, really good, but Tyler, definitely, if you can have Russell Wilson play like that every week, it's going to be hard to stack up against you.
Right on. All right. And my matchup versus Josh, I lost 104.7 to Josh's 123.5. I played the top score this week. That is really, really tough. I did everything that I possibly could. Like, even my bench players, like, even if I would have started my Naheem Hines, who I had on my bench, who scored a ton of points, it still wouldn't have been enough. So all I could really do is just pray and hope that it wasn't going to come down to it. I'm actually kind of tap dancing here for a second because I'm trying to get my matchup from last week. And all right, I found it. So Josh Allen went off for 28.18 points. Christian McCaffrey had 25. David Johnson had 16. Robert Woods had 12. On Josh's side, he had Pat Mahomes, who had 20.5 points. Ezekiel Elliott had 24.7 points. So just battle of the Titans there when it comes to running backs. DeAndre Hopkins went off for 15.1. Mark Andrews went off for almost 18 points. The defense for Josh, the New Orleans Saints, they had 17 points. So Josh finished with 123.5 points, and he had high score of the week. So congrats to Josh, and good luck this coming week. Jack, who we got?
Yes.
We got Ryan versus Katie. Now, why don't you tell us about what happened there?
The nail biter, the one that would have won close shave if we started the side bets week one. Ryan pulled it out with 108 versus Katie's 107.6. They're within a point of each other. Just brutal for Katie, but really good. I mean, it's better to be within a point and you're both scoring over 100 points. So I think I have more confidence for both of you going forward. Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Devonta Adams was a scary, scary combo for Ryan. They pretty much carried him the entire way. Beyond that, I'm a little bit concerned because a lot of your other guys kind of did not do a whole lot. So it takes, insane top end performances from your top two guys for you to survive over Katie's kind of a little bit more balanced teams. Katie had a couple of underperformers. DJ Moore, like less instead of more, and Jonathan Taylor did not really do like he was hoping or she was hoping them to be. But I think obviously we talked about Jonathan Taylor, and I think DJ Moore is going to be better throughout the season, so there's some potential there. And then kind of ironic, I was looking through her scores, but Travis Kelce was actually, I don't know if I've ever seen this, Travis Kelce was her third best tight end this week. She had two other tight ends on her bench, which again, you need to do something with them, whether you trade them to somebody who needs one or you drop one for a different position you need. But this is what I was talking about, where it's like Kelce had a great showing. I think he still had 11 something points, but like you're going to see that every week and go, oh, why didn't I do this? Or why didn't I do that? Like that could have won you the week starting the other one, but you just don't need them when you got a top end option like that. So that was just kind of interesting. Ryan, for example, desperately needs better help from a tight end with Chris Herndon doing nothing. So you could potentially trade him one of those other couple top end guys and maybe get something back. As for Ryan, Joe Burrow, he looked good as far as NFL standards in his first game. Not as much as you would have wanted for fantasy, but it was exciting to see him run that one long run in. So hopefully, if you're relying on him, he'll do some more for you in the future. Overall, it was a really, really close game. Could have gone either way. So sucks for Katie. Good for Ryan getting that first win, but I think they'll both be okay in the next couple of weeks here.
Right on. Moving to Jordan versus Jay. Jordan destroyed Jay. He destroyed him 93.9 to 68.4. On Jordan's side of the matchup, Drew Brees had 14.4 points. Calvin Ridley had 24.9 points. Juju Smith-Schuster had 18.9 points. And his kicker had 10 points as well. Over on Jay's side, Kyler Murray, the guy who Jay just traded away, 26.3 points. And his next highest score was his kicker at 12 points. So that's all you really need to say about Jay's team. Jay struggling this week. Hopefully his running backs will help him out a little bit more than what they did last week. All right, moving on. Jack, why don't you tell us about your team?
My matchup.
Yeah.
Same kind of situation and game line as the last matchup, but I won 98.7 to Cassie's 66 and change. So great defense by my squad. I'm really proud of them holding Cassie to 60 points or so. Dak was definitely a letdown for you, Cassie, but in future weeks, I think he's going to be great. Matt Ryan put up 450 yards, so that definitely gave me the edge of that battle. They were behind most of the game, and he just kept throwing to everybody. So hopefully I'll see more of that going forward. Josh Jacobs combined for almost a third of my entire points, so that really that set me apart big time. He basically was, without Josh Jacobs, basically Cassie and I tie. He was the difference maker of that gap. Mixon was a disappointment for me, but I think going against the Chargers defense, I don't fully credit or fully put that on him. He had a rare fumble, which I don't think he's fumbled since college. There was some weird stat out there that he never fumbles, or since his rookie season maybe, but he had 66 yards on, I think, mid-teens carries, so he was doing decently against a good defense. James Conner getting hurt against Cassie was super bad. He was one I was nervous about going into Monday Night Football because I thought he was going to go off like I predicted. So having him and Cooper Kupp, both I thought would have been top-end guys, disappointing hurt. On my side in disappointments, Odell Beckham only had 22 yards, but he had 10 targets. 2 of those 10 targets were pass interference. 3 of them were overthrown, and 3 of them were caught. So, I mean, I think his line could have looked a lot better. And if Baker can figure out how to get him the ball, seeing him get 10 targets and that much of a target share is good. Overall, Cassie, I don't think you're going to score this low normally. I think you just had some tough breaks. So while I appreciate getting the win off the bat, I think Cassie will bounce back well.
Right on, right on. All right, and now for the final matchup, we have Alex versus Ben. Alex gets absolutely crushed. 60.7 points to Ben's 89.5. 1 sec. Oh, man. Excuse me. Oh, thank you. All right, so with that, Lamar Jackson for Alex had 27.5 points. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Over on Ben's side, Deshaun Watson had 20.82 points. Aaron Jones had 13.6. DK Metcalf had 15.5. And you know, their running backs, like, I think, well, I don't know this for a fact, but between Saquon and Chubb, I mean, those have got to be the lowest RB1s this whole week. Hopefully Nick Chubb and Saquon can pick it up for them. Otherwise, Alex might be going crazy at the running back position because he just traded away one of his starters. So I don't know. I don't predict that Saquon Barkley is going to do this all year, but he definitely would leave an uneasy feeling in my stomach. I feel the same exact way about Chubb, and I was high on Chubb this year. I thought Chubb would pick up where he left off, and it just didn't happen. Now, granted, they did play Baltimore, so we'll see what Chubb is doing tonight versus Who are they playing tonight? Who's Cleveland playing tonight?
Bengals.
Bengals, yeah. Yep. So, all right, that will wrap up our matchup recaps. Coming up next, we've got the undefeated club. So that's Josh, Tyler, Ryan, Jack, Jordan, and Ben. Congratulations to you, 1-0, folks. A few things that we just wanted to mention real quick before we get into our weekly Pick'em League. Jack, you had a few thoughts about some disappointing high draft capital that were actually let down. So why don't you grab the floor here
Yeah.
for just a quick minute and tell us what you got.
I'll try. The floor is pretty heavy, but what I have is I just thought it was really odd that this first week, I mean, it's only week one, doesn't matter a lot, but it's a rougher start for really half of the first round draft picks this year than I think we usually see coming out. Usually those are your guys that you see as locks. So running through in order of when they were drafted, you just talked about the Saquon Barkley getting 6.5 points, 6.6. Not what you want out of the number 2 guy, especially when number 1 and number 3 go off as much as they did week 1. Number 6, Alvin Kamara. He's the only one that's probably a shocker, doesn't really belong here. He had 18 points this past week, but it was off of 2 touchdowns. So in a week where you get 2 touchdowns, I think you're expecting to see more than 6 other points beyond that. So only having 16 rushing yards is low for any running back that you're going to play, let alone a first round pick. So hoping that he's not as touchdown reliant going forward. Number 7, Michael Thomas. He had a 1.7 points, and I know what you're saying. He's hurt. He was hurt this week, blah, 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 whatever. He had that before he got hurt, and that was at the end of the game when he got rolled up on. So it already was a pretty down week for him, considering he was the number 1 wide receiver, which, side note, Jack bold take for the entire season was that Michael Thomas wouldn't be a top 2-3 wide receiver. So looking good so far. Number 10, Miles Sanders didn't even play for Jordan, so that was brutal, but he's supposed to be back this week, so we'll see how he does. Number 11, you just talked about Nick Chubb, 4.6 points, but I think it was kind of game scripted out where they were behind all game. And number 12, Kenyon Drake, he had 12.5, not bad, but again, it was a touchdown kind of dependent game where he only had 6 points beyond that. So hopefully these guys all bounce back for you, but just kind of something interesting to watch that the top guys were not making as big of an impact week 1.
Right on. Yeah, no, that can be a little frustrating to have your high draft capital not perform the way you want it to. So hopefully next week, this coming week, it won't be so bad. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our weekly pick'em game. Jack, why don't you go over the scoreboard and tell me what happened last week?
Yes, sir. So at the standing is right now, as hopefully everybody knows, by the way, you get 2 points if you pick the underdog and 1 point if you pick the favorites. So make sure to pay attention to that, what the projected lines are. But Katie and Ryan both had some luck with picking the underdogs well. They are both tied for the lead at 8 points out of a possible 12, I suppose, if you guessed all underdogs and they all won. But good start for them. Jordan is in 3rd place with 7 points right behind them. I have 6. Cassie has 5. Walters, you have 3, and Alex is at 2.
Right on. Yes. All right. So this week we talked about it last week, but this week it is going to be going down live. We are going to be implementing our
Stone Cold Lock of the Century. Oh, the week.
All right, so we're going to have our Stone Cold Lock of the Week, which means if you pick a Stone Cold Lock of the Week and you get it wrong, you will lose 1 point in your accumulation of points. I guess I didn't have another word for that. So, but you don't get anything extra for picking your Stone Cold Lock. It is a Stone Cold Lock for a reason, because you feel it is the easiest matchup to have a victory. So it is your Stone Cold Lock of the Week, and we will be getting into that right now. Again, if you want league members, please try and get your picks to me in by noon. And for the rest of you who are not playing, just try and have your lineup set by noon so we can have the most accurate team for this portion of the podcast. All right, so first matchup we have is going to be Jordan versus Tyler. Looking at the looking at the breakdown from ESPN, ESPN is giving the nod to Tyler this week when it comes to quarterback. Russell Wilson versus Ben Roethlisberger. And then it is a split on the running backs for each team. Running back 1 going to Tyler, running back 2 going to Jordan. Jordan and Tyler also split on their wide receivers. The wide receiver 1 going to Jordan and the wide receiver 2 going to Tyler. Tyler has the advantage with the tight end spot, and Jordan takes the advantage at the flex position. If I would have done this better, I would have been able to read these photos a little bit easier, but the text is too small, and so we're just going to have to go along with that. Jack, what do you see in this matchup real quick?
Yeah, just a couple of things that I've noticed. I like Russell as QB way more than Breeze this year, with Breeze losing Michael Thomas. So I think Tyler's going to get off to an edge with Russell there. Jordan does get his first round pick back this week. So he won the game and put up, I think, mid-90s last week without that. So that should be scary. This is the only battle of the undefeated teams this week. So it's somebody's dropping out of the undefeated club either way. Everybody else is 1-0 or 0-1 against each other, or some combo of a losing team. I think Austin Eckler, though, on Jordan's side is going to be a huge breakout, because I think they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, and that's what Eckler's bread and butter is against the Chiefs. So I think he's going to have some points. Michael Gallup versus Calvin Ridley is in a head-to-head matchup, so that'll be interesting. Hopefully you guys are watching that game. And beyond that, I think the only other big question mark for me is if George Kittle's going to play. I think he's currently been missing some practice. So, Tyler, that's going to be a huge knock for your squad if he's unable to go.
That is correct. Yeah, he is not. I don't think he's practiced yet this week. I don't. Was he a DNP this week, or was he limited, or today?
I don't think he's practiced yet. I don't know about today, but up until today, he hasn't practiced.
Right on. All right, we're going to move over to Josh versus Katie. In this matchup, it looks like here that Katie, no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Josh has the advantage at quarterback, and with Patrick Mahomes versus Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. Josh and Katie both split the running back position, where the RB1 for Ezekiel Elliott on Josh's team, he gets the nod there, and Jonathan Taylor for the running back 2 spot over on Katie's team, the advantage goes to that. The wide receiver position is split again. Wide receiver 1 going to Josh, DeAndre Hopkins, and the wide receiver 2 spot going to Katie with Will Fuller. The tight end is definitely going to Katie's player, Travis Kelce, and the flex is also going to Katie's player with Raheem Mostert. Jack, what do you see in this matchup real quick?
So this is a matchup of the top scorer from week 1 versus another team that really should be undefeated too, but Katie missing it out by 1 point there. So it's 2 top teams that are going head to head. I think Mahomes is going to have a huge day against the Chargers. They are worse against the pass than they are the run, so they're going to have to move the ball through the air. But I think Katie's going to have some issues with Daniel Jones going against the Bears defense. He didn't look great in my opinion last week, and I think Khalil Mack's going to be all over him. Zeke should be a beast versus Atlanta for Josh. Rojo's a question mark if he keeps getting carries. He should be great, but we'll see what he looks like. He is going against a bad Carolina defense. Katie, on the other hand, her running backs are very, very scary. I think, like I said, Kamara is going to get a ton of work with Michael Thomas out, and Jonathan Taylor could be the breakout this week. I actually like Josh's receivers more because I think DeAndre and Landry are both under-projected for scores of what I would give them, because they're both going against bad pass defenses. But I think DJ Moore will bounce back for Katie. I just don't love Will Fuller as much against Baltimore. For my kind of out there pick, I think Mark Andrews is going to outscore Travis Kelce in their matchup head to head, just with like the high scoring matchup against the Texans. But I'm sure Kelce will still get a touchdown, or at least, 60, 70 yards. And then the only other thing I noticed with benches, Katie, I'm very tempted, if I were you, to put in Hollywood Brown. He had a really, really good week 1, and they're going to play the Texans and have to throw the ball a lot. So don't know who you'd sub out for, maybe Will Fuller, but that's my thoughts.
Okay, right on. Cool. Good luck to both of those players this week. Moving on, we have Jay versus Ben. Ben is the projected favorite in this one. I'm sorry, I just realized that when we were going over all of our teams that we have not been picking who we want to have to win. So I'm actually just
Oh,
gonna roll back just a little bit here real quick, and we're gonna go back to Tyler and Jordan real quick. Can you tell me who you want to have win, or who are you picking to win between Tyler and Jordan?
who I want to have win.
No.
Who I'm picking
No,
to
just
win?
who you think is going to win, not who you want to have win. We're not playing favorites here. Who do you
Yeah,
think's gonna
no.
win?
Right. I think I'm going to pick Jordan. No disrespect to Tyler, because last time I picked against him, he destroyed his opponent. So I'm sorry, Jordan. But I'm just worried with Kittle being a question mark of playing, and then he has Marvin Jones in his lineup, which I think is a great pick if Galladay doesn't play, but it's a bad pick if Galladay does play. Not bad, but not as good. So I think with those two question marks, if we knew Tyler was full strength head to head, I'd probably pick him. But with those question marks, Jordan's a good enough team that he should still have a great chance to win.
I picked Tyler. I think Tyler's gonna come out swinging again, and I think he's gonna score over 100 points. The rest of the league, Jordan thinks Tyler's gonna win. Ryan thinks Tyler is gonna win, and so does Alex. Tyler thinks Jordan is going to win. Katie thinks Tyler will win, and Cassie thinks Jordan will win. So that gives us 3 votes for Jordan and 5 votes for Tyler. Moving on again to our next matchup, since nobody picked, we have Josh versus Katie. I picked Josh in this matchup. Jack, who did you pick in this match?
I also picked Josh. I just thought his players had a lot better matchups, even if I like some of Katie's players better. Hard to pick against the number 1 point scorer.
Yeah, I would agree. Everybody probably felt the same way except for Ryan, because everybody else picked Josh except for Ryan. Ryan was the only person who picked Katie. Also, to note that Jordan picked, I'm sorry, on the last matchup, Jordan versus Tyler, Jordan thinks that Tyler is going to be his
Stone Cold Lock of the Century.
On the way.
All right, so now that we're done skipping back and forth, I had to make sure I got that in there so that people knew. All right, so
Yeah.
like I said, when it comes between Josh and Katie, there are 7 people who picked Josh and 1 person who picked Katie. That 1 person being Ryan. All right, we're gonna be moving on to our next one, which I believe we've already talked about. No, I don't think we have.
Mhm.
All right, this is where I stopped and paused, and we had to go back.
Yep.
All right, so now we're doing Ben versus Jay. Ben definitely has the advantage here. It seems that I didn't. Did I write it? Okay, yeah, I did. Ben has a 14.3 point spread over Jay. He is the favorite by 14, almost 14 and a half points. The heaviest spread of all of the picks this week, or all the matchups this week. I picked Ben in this one, but what ESPN is thinking as well is that he has all the check marks except for Ben has all the check marks except for quarterback Lamar Jackson on Jay's side, and his kicker Matt Prater for Jay. So, but other than that, Ben's winning the running back room. He's winning the wide receiver room, the tight end, the flex, and the defense. All that is going over to Ben. Jack, what is your pick for this matchup?
My pick is also Ben. Surprise, surprise.
Did you make a Stone Cold Lock of the Week?
Yes, God, that's making me want to pick Ben instead, looking at these check marks, but I did one for an upcoming matchup. And
Okay,
I will
right
stick
on.
with it.
All right, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people. Yes, all 8 people picked Ben, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players who made Ben their
Stone Cold Lock of the Century.
On the way.
All right,
Oh,
so
man.
the only 2 people who did not make Ben the Stone Cold Lock of the Week was you and Jordan. Otherwise, everybody else picked Ben to be the Stone Cold Lock of the Week, ladies and
When
gentlemen.
Jay pulls the upset, this is when Jordan and I are going to take the lead.
Oh yeah, for sure. Real quick, what do you have on any thoughts? If you have any thoughts, otherwise we can move on to our next matchup.
Yeah, no, we can just move on. We can see kind of the breakdown there.
Okay, right on. We're moving on. All right, so we have Cassie versus Foster. Let's see here. I'm looking. Foster, he has the advantage at quarterback. And you know who his quarterback is, Jack?
Oh, who's that?
Tom Brady. Tom Brady has the advantage over Dak Prescott this week. Foster and Cassie are splitting the running back comparison. The advantage goes to I'm sorry, I meant the running back. If I said wide receiver, I'm stupid. I'm sorry. The running back 1 goes to Foster. The running back 2 goes to Cassie. Foster takes both wide receivers and the flex. Cassie, the tight end of Hunter Henry, is the advantage in that matchup. And so right now, it seems that Foster, he is the favorite, and I'm looking up the point spread right now between Foster and Cassie. Foster is a 7.1 favorite in this matchup. Jack, what do you see in this matchup real quick?
Yeah, this is the only matchup with 2 teams that are both looking for their first win. So everyone else has at least one winner and one loser, or at least one winner. I like both of their QBs this week. I think they're going to both light it up, and excited to see that. I think Derrick Henry and David Montgomery are both going to go against really, really bad rushing defenses. So I love that for Foster. I think ESPN's got it right there. A little bit worried about James Conner being in, because I don't even know if he's going to play or if he's going to be on a snap count or what. And she doesn't really have any great options beyond that. Foster's receivers are just so scary. Julio and Thielen were both top 10 receivers last week, and they're probably looking at either the same or better matchups. So I think those guys are going to carry it for him again. Curious to see if Foster's going to keep Melvin Gordon on the bench again this week, even with Philip Lindsay out, I believe, with turf toe. So that's kind of the one that I'm watching. And then that's the main notes that I have. So beyond that, I am picking Foster. And you know what this game is, Walters?
What's that?
Well, if you hit that
Cold
button
Lock
again
of the
there.
Century. On the week.
It's your Stone
That
Cold Lock of the Week.
is correct.
All right, right on. Just on your production meeting. Would you put your Stone Cold Lock of the Week in italic letters in the future?
Yes.
When you jot them in? Thank you.
Yeah, can do.
Right on, right on. Okay, so you were not the only person who picked Paul Foster this week. There are 7 people who picked Paul Foster to win this matchup. The only person who did not pick this matchup to go Foster's way was Cassie herself. She is having a lot of confidence in her team and in herself, and she picked herself to upset Foster. Good luck to both of those players this week. All right, moving on. We have matchup number 5. This is Jack versus Al, and I'm just going to go down here real quick. Al has the advantage at quarterback with Kyler Murray. He has the running back 1 with Saquon Barkley for some stupid reason. But you come back with Joe Mixon. Is that right? You have Joe Mixon, don't you? Yeah, you have Joe Mixon.
That is correct.
You have the advantage there in the running back 2. Wide receiver 1 goes to you as well with Allen Robinson. Alex's wide receiver 2 with AJ Green takes the green check mark there. At tight end, Zach Ertz is over Alex's tight end, and Alex brings home the money with his flex in Devin Singletary. The spread on this game between Alex and Jack is 9.9, Jack being the heavy favorite here. Jack, what do you see in this matchup?
I'm a little worried because I don't see this as clear of a heavy favorite as it feels like. It's going to be interesting, though. It's the new look of Al's team. It's kind of the battle of former and current podcast hosts, too. So it's kind of a little bit of bragging rights here on our show. Alex, of course, has Kyler Murray in, like we talked about with the previous trade. So if he goes off and not Lamar, I am fully blaming Jay for me losing this week. I do like that he doesn't have Malcolm Brown to play, because Michael Thomas being on his team doesn't hurt me at all right now. So we will see there. I think Josh Jacobs, like I mentioned before, is going to work again and get a ton of work. So I think he will be an easy top 10 running back. And if Joe Mixon just bounces back to like top 15, I'm sitting really, really well with my two guys. Saquon has a tough matchup versus Chicago, so I don't love that for Alex, but I think he'll still probably do better than his 6 points last week. Kareem Hunt's such a toss-up too. I feel like he could be huge in this game tonight, or he could be underutilized from Nick Chubb. So the key matchup for me is going to be Joe Mixon versus Kareem Hunt, who are actually playing in the game tonight together. So beyond that, my selfish reasons, I'm hoping Galladay still ends up sitting out with his injuries. But otherwise, I think our receiver matchups are pretty split. I just need OBJ to figure out how to get more catches and I'll feel better. Otherwise, I think Alex is going to win the wide receiver matchup. And then beyond that, everything else looks pretty even to me, flex tight end defenses. So I predict this game is going to be one of the closer ones of next week. I could see it going either way. For a guy who put up like 60 points last week, I think Al's going to make this real close.
And who are you picking in this matchup then?
Oh, I'm picking myself. I'm selfish.
Okay, you just didn't have it in the notes there, so.
Yeah.
All right, so that gives it an even split. There are 4 people who are picking Jack, and there are 4 people who are picking Alex. I am picking Jack. Jack is picking Jack. Jordan's picking Jack, and Tyler's picking Jack. So that means Ryan, Alex, Katie, and Cassie are picking Alex. All right, we're going to be moving on to our final matchup here. It is yours truly versus the other Ryan in the league, Ryan Herman. So Walters versus Herman. In this matchup, I am the 4.5 point favorite, the smallest of all margins in the whole league. And just running down here, I have the advantage in the quarterback with Josh Allen. I have the advantage with running back 1 and CMC, as it should be. I have the advantage in running back 2 with David Johnson. There it is. I can't read. It's so small. All right. Wide receiver 1 goes to Ryan with Devontae Adams. But my wide receiver 2 and Robert Woods takes home the cake in that one. The tight end for Ryan in Chris Herndon versus Austin Hooper. I don't know how you feel about that, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. But Ryan gets a green check mark on that for the flex position. I'm sorry, for the tight end position, but he also does get it for the flex position as well with Zach Moss versus Nyheim Hines, which I find to be absolutely absurd. I think Nyheim Hines will definitely outscore Zach Moss this week without a problem. Jack, what do you see in this matchup real quick?
Yeah, I think kind of like you mentioned, I think Josh Allen's going to dominate. They're playing Miami, and he could move the ball in the air or run it himself on the ground. So I think he is going to easily surpass Joe Burrow for Ryan playing him. I mean, I think Burrow has a chance to do okay against the Cleveland defense that's not great tonight, but he's not going to light them up either. I love both of your running backs versus Ryan's running backs. I just think they have better looks this week. Devontae Adams, though, is going to be a scary problem again. He's going against Detroit, so I'm nervous there for you. But I like Robert Woods over Tyler Lockett. I think he's just more consistent. I mentioned kind of the same thing as you did. I think Austin Hooper is going to have another down week, but I still like him more than Chris Herndon. I just don't see Herndon being favored here. And then Nyheim Hines is a sneaky good flex play. I like that you're putting him in here because I don't know if everybody would with Jonathan Taylor being the number 1. But I like him, but I'm also surprised you didn't pick Diggs and go for the double stack because Diggs and Josh Allen had a great connection week 1.
Yeah, I don't. It's all about the fantasy points right now. Maybe I'm chasing touchdowns, but with Nyheim Hines getting the nod, well, not getting the nod, with him. He's essentially going to be getting more targets, and they passed to him a decent amount of times last game. And with him, it's only him and Jonathan Taylor sharing the backfield. He's going to see more targets, so I feel comfortable putting him in over Diggs. Hopefully, I don't shoot myself in the foot, but that we'll have to see about that. Who did you pick in this matchup?
I picked you.
Okay, I also picked me.
Full support.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, a lot of support from the league picking me this week. I have 6 people. There is me, Jack, Jordan, Tyler, Katie, and Cassie who are picking me, and then the other 2 people who are picking Ryan is Ryan Herman is picking himself, and Alex is picking Ryan Herman as well. All right, that is going to wrap up our matchup recaps. And if I can
Made it through the matchups.
That's a lot. Actually, it's not a matchup recap, it's a matchup preview, but whatever, that's all good. All right, so we are just gonna do this, and we're gonna do that. We have our NFL Pick'em Jack. Yeah, we had really great starts. We both start 0-1 with Washington win 27-17 over Philadelphia, and Jacksonville making the huge upset against Indianapolis. Jacksonville wins 27-20. Who's your pick this week?
This week, I am doubling down and picking the team that's playing Washington. I have to hope. And I'm picking the Arizona Cardinals, who are the surprising 1-0 team after beating the 49ers. If Washington hurts me again, so be it. But I'm hoping to get my revenge on them here.
Right on. Okay. And I totally forgot about this segment. And so now I'm just grasping at straws here.
You want me to cover the other thing while you look at it?
No, it's fine. I'm going to go out on a limb and say New England wins, just because.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to make it easy. So I'm going to go with New England on this one. All right. So that is the NFL pick'em between Jack and I. We have just a few more things here, and then we're going to be getting moving on here. Guillotine notes. Week 1 elimination is some guy named Skyler. I don't know who he is or what he does, but he is out on the league. And Jack, you wrote an obituary, so I want you to be able to read that.
I did. Credit to Jordan. I think we were all talking one night and he came up with this idea saying that somebody should do it. And I'm like, oh, I'm for sure doing this. So every week, most of our league is in it, but even for those of you that aren't, I'll try to make it a little bit fun and do a little, I don't know if it's fun with an obituary, but you know what I mean. Future weeks, we need to have like a sad piano or something playing in the background. But for this week, week 1, Skyler, on the evening of Monday, September 14th, beloved league member Skyler left us sadly due to a guillotine decapitation. Co-worker of Jordan and classmate of Glick, he was loved by all, and yet not that much because many were happy to see him go since it wasn't them. He was charged with false advertising of quality goods due to believing too much in rookie players that did not pan out. He's preceded by no one since he couldn't even survive week 1, but he's survived by his core players, which will go on to help their new managers survive. R.I.P.
All right, that makes the available players of Saquon, James Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Keenan Allen, Cam Akers. Saquon went for $400. Yikes, that's a lot. James Robinson went to Al for $159. Al also picked up CeeDee Lamb for $152. Jack picked up A.J. Brown for $121. Jack also picked up Keenan Allen for $85. And Jordan picked up Cam Akers for $51. Jordan had the highest score. And apparently I, Jay, Al, and Foster also did well. Jack, I guess you had the third lowest score after James Conner got hurt and Mac is out for the year. I'm surprised you actually survived, so congratulations.
Me too.
I don't understand how you did not take last, but I'm
hanging on by straws.
I'm sure you are just biting at your nails this week to make sure. What is my strategy for bidding on some of the players this week? Well, I got outbid a lot. I think I put like $80 on Saquon Barkley, which I have no idea why I thought would win. But apparently people just want to go all out and spend all that cash in week 1. So if I'm able to keep surviving, maybe I'll start putting a little bit more money on some of those players. But I totally underbid all the players that I tried bidding on. So how do you feel about going into week 2?
I feel a lot better now. I think the 2 new running backs that I have in place of James Conner and Marlon Mack are probably in better situations than they were in before. Malcolm Brown was shown as the clear starter. And Frank Gore, he's not going to do great, but he just has at least the opportunity now with Bell gone. I really like that I got AJ Brown and Keenan Allen for decently cheap, in my opinion. So now, I mean, it's 2 flex and 2 receivers, but I essentially have 4 receivers in TJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, AJ Brown, and Keenan Allen, which that looks good for a regular fantasy team, let alone a 17 team thing. So I don't think it's going to be a top team, but I definitely feel a lot better about being able to survive a few weeks versus grasping at straws last week and hoping to God that I didn't get eliminated.
Yeah. We'll see what happens this week. Guillotine League should be lots and lots of fun. Is there anything else that you want to mention with the Guillotine League?
No, that's it. We can keep it brief.
Okay. All right, moving on to our dynasty notes. Deflate these balls. Jack, how did your game go against Foster?
Oh God, it was awful. I was projected to get 100 points, which would have won the week, but I got like 65. I had like the ultimate disappointing group of people. So I had Carson Wentz, who just looked terrible and had no passing or no offensive line help. Joe Mixon, only like 4 points. Le'Veon Bell got hurt. Boston Scott played with Miles Sanders out and still did nothing. So they were all disappointments for me. I'm trying not to overreact with the low points showing, but based off week 1, before the week started, I went into it thinking, I'm not a top team, but I feel like I'm maybe 4 or 5 or 6, like good enough to compete. And now I'm like, God, I might be bottom 3. So I'm a little worried. New to Dynasty, so we'll see how it goes. But
yeah, I hear you. I'm. This is my first time doing Dynasty League as well. I lost a heartbreaker to some guy named Crass, who actually changed his team name. I don't even know who it is, but I lost by 3 points to him. And fun fact, I had 2 teams that scored over 100 points in standard scoring, and I lost both of those matchups, which is a huge kick in the nuts to me. The bigger thing about this loss to him as well is I had Derrick Henry and the Denver Broncos defense Monday night, and I watched the from the 2-minute warning in the second half to the end of the game, so at like 12:30 at night, just hoping that Derrick Henry could give me enough points to scoot by Crass, but stay out of the end zone. Well, what ended up happening was that Derrick Henry got me just enough to be able to lose to Mr. Crasp by less than a half a point, but the field goal that Steven Gostkowski finally put through the uprights after missing 3 other ones made me lose 3 additional points to my Denver defense. So that sucked. Aaron Rodgers and Mark Andrews freaking killed it for me. I was super ecstatic by how Derrick Henry and David Johnson both did. I was disappointed by DJ Moore. I thought he would have done more, and I think Amari Cooper could have done a little bit better. I did have Mike Evans and Cortland Sutton sitting on my bench, and hopefully if they are healthy, when they are healthy, they will be able to be slotted into my wide receiver 1 and 2 spot. I feel pretty confident, though, that my team might be able to make the playoffs. I had a really nice first week. Do you have any other thoughts on the Dynasty League?
not really. I don't want to get into it too much where it's only covering our players, but I think it's pretty early to tell for week to week, and we're not going to go breakdowns. So we'll update you guys more as we get farther into the Dynasty season here and there.
We did have 5 teams this last week score over 100 points in our Dynasty League, so there's a lot of muddied waters to figure out who is going to rise up and be the number 1 team in our Dynasty League. And I think that pretty much is going to wrap up our show. I really, really would like to thank all of our listeners for coming out, listening to us, and putting up with whatever it is we were doing here. We had some technical difficulties that we're gonna have to labor over and figure out what we're gonna do there. Thanks a lot, Jack, for coming out. I appreciate all the work that you put into this episode. It was so fantastic to have all this awesome content and for you to be able to deliver it to us all. I'm hoping next week we're going to be able to see your face, and things will get better. I think things will get better when it comes to broadcasting on YouTube. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else. Just thanks for listening and have a great weekend, everybody. Jack, you got anything that you want to say?
Yeah, if anybody's made it this far in this little bit longer one, thanks for sticking with us. We're going to continue to try to bring better and better content and more fun games, so it's not same old for you guys every week. And looking forward to fixing some issues going forward. Let's go watch some Thursday Night Football.